Hello everyone, thanks for joining today's webinar on ISO 19443, the future quality management standard for nuclear supply chains. This webinar is being recorded and a version will be made available to you along with a copy of the slide deck. We'd love to hear from you during the webinar, so please submit your questions at any time. You can find the Q&A panel at the bottom right hand side of your screen. Your questions won't be seen by other attendees, but we will do our best to answer as many as we can. However, if we do run out of time, we will follow up on any unanswered questions. I'm Chris Dempsey, Business Development Manager here at TÜV SÜD Nuclear Technologies. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer with a background in design, operations and project delivery within the nuclear decommissioning sector. Although the seminar is focused towards nuclear new build, I personally believe that ISO 19443 is also important to the nuclear decommissioning supply chain. Having previously worked as an operations manager on the Sellafield site in the UK, I have a good appreciation of the varied approaches seen across decommissioning project delivery. As an ex-operator, I can see that ISO 19443 will play a major part in enabling supply chains to provide facility operators with greater confidence and assurance in the supply of items deemed important to nuclear safety. So today we'll be discussing what is ISO 19443 and why is it necessary? What are the benefits for the supply chain adopting it? And I will also look at the main differences between ISO 19443 and ISO 9001 and how to integrate 19443 into existing management systems. Our presenter today is Özlem Yilmaz. Özlem is a nuclear safety expert and project manager. She has a master's degree in nuclear technology, 6 years of research work and work experience in severe accident analysis and management, and a broad knowledge and understanding of both nuclear technology and nuclear safety culture. In her current position as project manager, she is part of the team coordinating the accreditation process here at TÜV SÜD in accordance with ISO 19443. Being part of the working group developing sustainability criteria for the nuclear industry supply chain rounds off Özlem's portfolio. We also have two panelists today who will be responding to your questions following the presentation. Our panelists are Mr. Dominic Kugler, CEO, Equipment Inspection, Management Systems and Manufacturer Assessment for TÜV SÜD France, and Dr. Mark Schlagenhofer. He's Head of Department for Human Technology Organization, Regulation Procedures at TÜV SÜD. I'll say a little more about our panelists later before we move into the Q&A section. So with all the introductions done, I'll hand things over to you, Özlem.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Chris. Hi everyone, my name is Özlem Yilmaz, and today I will be talking about the future quality management norm for the nuclear supply chain, ISO 19443. Nuclear supply chain, the organizations providing products and services that are important to nuclear safety for nuclear facilities in operation, construction, or designing phase are facing many challenges around the world while they are trying to comply with industry-specific quality and safety requirements and at the same time competing in an increasingly international market. What needed is an international quality management standard above and beyond ISO 9001 in order to compel suppliers to consider quality-related crucial points of nuclear facilities in a harmonized way around the world, and with that, help the nuclear supply chain to overcome its challenges. With this motivation, the norm ISO 19443 came to life. Today, first, I will introduce this norm to you, then I will show you how the norm is structured. Following that, I will tell how you, as suppliers or potential suppliers to the nuclear industry, can benefit from implementing this norm. After that, I will talk about the crucial requirement areas of ISO 19443 and how you can integrate these requirements into an existing management system. So let's begin. Quality assurance has a long history in nuclear power plants, which is also one focus area of IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And if you take a look at the 70s here, safety was considered as a process-oriented way by IAEA. But with the time, they realized that safety cannot be regarded in an isolated way, but it is strongly linked to the other areas. And as it is shown in the blue circle here, the safety is the center point and strongly connected to the other factors like health, environment, security, economics, and quality. And all these factors are enclosed in safety culture. So safety has become an integrated management aspect of quality management systems with GSR3 from IAEA and GSR Part 2. The experience from these international guidelines as GSR3 from IAEA was taken as a strong base and combined with the knowledge from industry-specific national standards, such as NQA1 from ASME or KTA 1401 from Germany. Added to that was also the industrial experience gained in long years from operators and constructors, as well as the experience of international authorities. The combination of all these experiences and knowledge from the nuclear world forms the specific requirements for the nuclear industry. And this combined with the quality management of ISO 9001, the outcome is ISO 19443. So the new norm, ISO 19443. Quality management system specific requirements for the application of ISO 9001 by organizations in the supply chain of nuclear energy sector supplying products and services that are ITNS, important to nuclear safety. The norm was published in May 2018. And ISO 19443 also comes in combination with an accreditation norm, TC 23406. This is essential to create the acceptance at the authority side. It means that the only organizations which have been accredited to this standard can certify according to ISO 19443. And as we see, it was published in January 2020, so quite recent. And to our knowledge, until now, no company has been accredited to this norm yet. TÜV has begun the accreditation process, and we are aiming for a successful accreditation by the end of 2021. Another relevant document is the guidelines for the application of the norm, which consists of the examples for how to treat two separate paragraphs of the norm, such as demonstration of how to treat translation. So now you got to know the norm, but maybe you're still asking yourself, do we really need another standard? We have enough of them already. Well, our answer to this in short is yes. Nuclear industry is an international industry, and in our globalized world, only few countries can or will build a nuclear power plant with a regional supply chain. ISO 19443 considers this and uses the language of modern management systems like ISO 9001, independent of nationality or procedures, and shows which aspects of quality management needs to be deepened to be successful in nuclear industry. A nuclear new build project has an anticipated lifetime of 60 years. Therefore, licensee, the operator, is looking for a reliable supply chain and a long-lasting partnership throughout the entire lifetime of the power plant. The norm contains the quality management requirements the supplier must fulfill to become a part of this long-term relationship. ISO 19443 aims to improve the suppliers, your understanding of quality requirements for nuclear needs throughout the supply chain with an international standard, which increases the safety culture overall in the industry internationally. It standardizes the requirements, brings harmonization to the quality and safety culture internationally, which enforces all big players of the industry work in the same direction. In relation with that, it facilitates acceptance by regulatory bodies, which is the starting and the end point of any nuclear project. In essence, the norm ISO 19443 aims to build a long-term sustainable relationship between licensee and supplier. On this slide, I would like to show an overview of the structure of the norm. The parts that are taken directly from ISO 9001 is shown in a box like this. And the nuclear specific requirements are listed below the box. As an example here, we chose the quality management principles section. As you see, ISO 9001 gives 7 principles and 3 are added for the nuclear requirements in ISO 19443. Here's another extracted content from the norm. So the parts that are written in black, they are the parts that are identical to ISO 9001. We indicated the slight adaptation with blue here, and by slight adaptation, I mean the inclusion of an additional criteria. For example, the chapter 821 here, there is one additional criteria, which is the managing the interfaces with external partners. So this is in blue. And we indicated the additional chapters with red. For example, chapter 811 here, provision for CFS, counterfeit, fraudulent, or suspect items. And as you can imagine, that the inclusion of CFS items has a huge impact on nuclear industry. That's why ISO 19443 has a whole chapter about it. So I would like to now begin talking about the benefit of the norm to you suppliers by showing a standard nuclear supply chain. You are all familiar with the structure. At the top, we have the licensee. They hold the authorization granted by the nuclear regulatory body. And the requirements of the licensee, which was also imposed by the national regulatory body, will be cascaded through all of the manufacturers in each tier of the supply chain you see here. And as I mentioned earlier, the market is getting more and more international. So most of these suppliers, they are probably not in the same country, meaning they are following different regulations. And maybe the nuclear power plant site is in a whole another country with its own regulations. And there's something crucial here to consider. The suppliers, they can make their end customer, the licensee, happy only if they consider the requirements of the regulatory body. So you can see the challenge here. This is why a common understanding throughout the supply chain is so essential. ISO 19443 helps to implement this common understanding that harmonizes the international market in many aspects. At each level, the supplier will be potentially in the position to be the organization considered by ISO 19443. And as we see now that actually ISO 19443 has already been integrated into the logbook of certain constructors, and we expect this to be the case for more and more constructors worldwide. This common understanding and acceptance between customer and the supply chain that I just mentioned, it improves the effectiveness of supply chain according to nuclear safety, which then bring improved safety culture, consistent quality, and customer satisfaction. The norm helps you suppliers through basic international understanding, which brings access to international market, international recognition, and reduces the uncertainties and risks for your company. Most suppliers of the industry, they already have a management system implemented according to ISO 9001. If this is the case, the integration time and cost is reduced. But if you're a newcomer and you don't have the ISO 191 management system implemented yet, implementing ISO 19443 and being certified by it will reduce the effort and the time to get to ISO 9001. So the other way around also applies. And due to integration of IAEA requirements and other nuclear guidelines into the international accepted principles of ISO 9001, the norm facilitates the acceptance by regulatory bodies, which brings the reliable supply chain and long-lasting partnerships for you. In this slide, we would like to show you a selection of crucial requirement areas of the norm. In the view of TÜV-Süd, these are nuclear safety culture, risk-based thinking, determination of ITNS items or activities, traceability and verification, counterfeit, fraudulent, suspect items, documented information, and interested parties. Next, I will pick 3 of these requirements and I will present them in a bit more depth to you. The norm also lists 2 additional important definitions. These are CGI, commercial grade items. They are usually used in non-nuclear application and therefore not designed or manufactured to nuclear specific requirements. They may be then specified, procured, and installed into ITNS products. Second important definition is the graded approach. Graded approach is a process or method employed to ensure that the application of the requirements related to quality management, documentation, monitoring, and measurement is commensurate with nuclear safety significance. The stringency of the control measures and conditions to be applied is commensurate with the likelihood of possible consequences, as well as the level of risk associated with the loss of control. These are important definitions that come up at several points of the norm. That's why we found them important to mention here. Nuclear safety culture, one of the crucial requirements of the norm we want to highlight today. Safety culture equalizes with corporate culture in regard to safety issues. Safety culture, together with technological factors, represent 2 major factors contributing to nuclear safety, which is defined as the achievement of proper operating conditions, prevention of accidents, and mitigation of accident consequences, resulting in protection of workers, the public, and the environment from undue radiation risk. Nuclear safety culture can be also characterized by 2 components: behavior of individuals and the structural organizations. The optimal interaction between these 2 components ensure the nuclear safety. Now, you as a supplier, you might think to yourself, what is the impact for me as I'm delivering only pumps and I do not have any radiation on my site whatsoever? Well, nuclear safety considers the operation purpose, and from that drives the culture contributing to safety. So, what you can do to promote the nuclear safety culture in your organization? The Institute of Nuclear Power Operations has published the principles for strong nuclear safety culture. There are 8 principles according to this publication. I would like to highlight 3 here. Everyone is personally responsible for nuclear safety. Decision-making reflects safety first. A questioning attitude is cultivated. These aspects, they are also reflected within the norm ISO19443. The key message here is that any supplier involved in supplying ITNS products or services is a key partner in ensuring the appropriate level of nuclear safety is achieved. The next critical requirement we would like to highlight is the determination of ITNS items or activities. So again, ITNS stands for important to nuclear safety, and these are the products or services whose failure could result in undue radiation exposure of people or the environment. The determination whether a product or service is ITNS or not is conducted by the licensee or the Tier 1 under the responsibility of the licensee. And this is done with regard to nuclear safety function of the system, structure, or component to which the product or service belongs. The customer ordering a product or service submits the information if the product or service is ITNS or not. It is then the responsibility of the supplier to break it down to IDNS activities or ITNS items. This is step one. Subsequently, the supplier also has to identify those items as activities whose failure or malfunction has an impact on the fulfillment of the designated nuclear safety function. This will be the step two. And this step requires for manufacturer to do deep analysis of the functional impact of its product, its component, as well as the identification of the impact of the product on the three safety functions: control of reactivity, cooling, and confinement of radioactive material. This determination builds the basis for the graded approach to the application of quality requirements. Third and the last critical requirement point we will highlight today is the interested parties. In nuclear industry, we have a bit of a special situation. Here we have the internal interested parties, as you see in the blue box here, and the external interested parties in the gray boxes. The management of interested parties is a strategical pillar of quality management, and it is already included in ISO 9001. Especially the complex network of supplier and sub-suppliers underlines the importance of these aspects. And requirement and information regarding to nuclear safety functions have to be forwarded through the entire supply chain, as I mentioned. And this is the classical internal interface management, the blue box. But we talked about it previously. The licensee is also directly influenced by the regulator, because the regulator provides him the authorization. And this regulatory is also directly influenced by the state from whom he gets his authorization. And this state has bi- and multilateral contracts with other states. Furthermore, there are international convention requirements from European Union, and all these influence the decision-making of the state. And then we have other interested parties, like neighboring states, environmental groups, residents of the location of the nuclear power plant. They also have an influence on the licensee as well as on the regulator. So again, you see the challenge here. The interested parties in the nuclear sector has a long list. Nevertheless, all internal and external interested parties have to be identified, and the management of external interested parties and the interfaces has to be planned carefully. ISO 19443 ensures that the needs of all interested parties are considered and fulfilled. So let's talk about the integration of the requirements of ISO 19443 into the existing management system. From TÜV SÜD's view, there are 5 essential elements that forms the overall quality of a company. As you see here, the management system itself is one of them. Although they all look independent from each other, the quality management system describes the process and the procedure in order to achieve consistent quality in design and manufacturing, delivery reliability, organization and communication, and in experience and culture of the employees. So implementing ISO 19443 into your management system showcases that you have a sound process in place to match the high safety requirements of the nuclear industry with consistent quality repeatedly in long periods. Having this process and procedures in place with your quality management system and ensuring your capability on complying with the requirements of nuclear market, with the other essential elements of quality, you can build the overall long-term quality of your company that is ready for nuclear market. So from the decision to get the part of the nuclear market to a management system ready for the nuclear market, there are some steps that need to be taken. We listed some of these steps on the left-hand side here. Let's climb the ladder up together from bottom up. At the beginning, the necessary data is collected, and based on this data, the existing system is analyzed. Based on this analysis, the gaps and the weaknesses of your system can be determined, and required action plans are recommended based upon that. Following this, the necessary improvements are implemented, which then leads to the management system ready for nuclear market. We, as TÜV Süd, would like to support you in this process with our different services. Our Nuclear Training Center offers standardized and customized trainings on the key requirement areas of ISO 19443 norm. We offer a pre-assessment of your management system, where you get a first overview of your system and observations and recommendations that help you to identify action point and gaps. As I mentioned earlier, we also have started the process to get accredited for ISO 19443, and we are planning to be accredited by the end of 2021. From that point on, we will also offer third-party assessment and certification by an accredited body. And why we can support you with these services. We are one of the leading service providers in certification with over 60 years of experience in nuclear field. Providing exceptional quality, implementing the industry standards, we are the trusted partners of safety authorities, operators, and vendors. From our daily business, we know best both the requirements of the licensee and the challenges of manufacturers of the nuclear component and equipment throughout the supply chain. We have a global presence, which means our international expert and auditor team can support you in many countries. In essence, we can add the value to your company, which will secure your part in the world's growing nuclear market. Now, I would like to leave you with this image, the vision of ISO 19443, which I think also summarizes many points that I made today. ISO 19443 acknowledges the nuclear industry as an international industry facing with many challenges of maintaining consistent high quality in the supply chain and wants to contribute to overcome these challenges. It builds the bridge between nuclear industry safety demands and modern international management to ensure consistent high quality and safety. With ISO 19443, the nuclear world and the supplier world shake hands for a long-term partnership. With that, I would like to thank you and hand it over to my colleague, Chris.
Hi, thank you, Özlem. That was a really comprehensive overview with some really interesting aspects brought out. Judging by the questions we've had coming in, some good points for discussion. You touched on some really important aspects for the provision of a common understanding across international nuclear supply chains and how this can lead to a level playing field for both suppliers and end users, and also some important aspects on safety culture and the important focus on operational purpose and plant and equipment that's important to nuclear safety. So let me introduce you to our panel today, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. So today we've got Mr. Dominic Kugler. He's the CEO, Equipment Inspection, Management Systems and Manufacturer Assessment for TÜV Süd in France. As TÜV Süd France's CEO and Head of Industry Service Department, Dominic has got 2 decades of experience involving all aspects of inspection of welded equipment, as well as pressure equipment and parts for the nuclear supply sector. He also specialises in assessment of management systems, including ISO19443 and manufacturer qualifications. And also with us today, we have Dr. Mark Schlagenhofer. Mark's Head of Department for Human Technology Organisation, Regulation and Procedures at TÜV Süd. And as Head of Department, Mark's involved in the topics of operational guidelines, business organisation, technical qualification of personnel, quality management, ergonomic, human factors, safety management and culture of German nuclear power plants. That's quite a remit. He also has a broad understanding of the quality management and assurance standards such as ISO 9001 and also ISO 19443, as well as NQA1. So looking at the interest we've had so far, we've got some questions that we can go to now. Just bear with me while we sort those out. Okay, so gents, can you join me now through the screen? And I think we've got a question for Dominic. I think you might be suited to this one. So it's a question about someone who's already accredited for ISO 9001. How long? What the question is how long does it take until they've got positioned themselves to be qualified for ISO 19443, and how long is the certification process? Dominic, can you take that one?
I can take it, yes. Hello, everybody. The duration of implementation of ISO 19443 depends on many factors, in fact, and it depends that there is no, how can I say, definitive answer. Because it depends on the complexity of the organization, the existing organization, of the maturity of the existing quality management system. And it's, of course, also linked to the resources which are available to work on the project. If in your company you have already an existing nuclear culture, because we spoke a lot about nuclear culture, it's really important. You can implement the certification and make the grade up to the new standard within 6 months. I think it's possible, but as I told you before, it depends really on the complexity and on the maturity of your existing management system. Regarding the certification process in itself, it can be quite short. It is similar to an ISO 9001 certification process, which can be implemented in 2 or 3 months. From the audit planning phase to the delivery of the final certification. I think it's not the most long part of the job. The long part of the job is the preparation, of course, and as I told before, this preparation depends really on your maturity of the existing system. So I hope this answer was clear for you.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, I think as you've sort of summarised there, and as you've quoted, it's very much dependent on the maturity of the organisation and their ability to focus and drive towards that accreditation. So, absolutely understandable. As we say in the UK, how long's a piece of string? You know, it depends where you're starting from. Yeah. Okay, we have another question in now. Mark, I think this might be suited to you. So the question is that the organisation, they can see the potential for ISO 19443 to their company, but they're having a hard time or trouble implementing ISO 9001 so far. So again, you know, it's that focus and that maturity that we've just touched on in the last question. And the question is, can TÜV possibly help with the 9001 accreditation also? Mark?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. Joke aside. As we heard in the presentation, ISO 19443 broadens the ISO 9001. So it's very important that you have a good management system according to ISO 9001. And what is great about the standards of ISO 19443 is that it adopts the high-level structure of the ISO 9001, and you have just additional requirements and so on. So as I said before, it's really, really necessary that you have a good ISO 9001 management system. And of course, TÜV can provide you help, for instance, training, or we can make an audit to make you more confident in your management system and help you with the certification body. Or we can even make the certification process with you. So short and long answer, we can help you.
That's great. And obviously just stressing the importance of having a really good underpinning ISO 9001 system, and that would make it a lot easier to move on to the gap analysis and the application of 19443. So that's a great answer. Thank you. And we've got a few more coming in now. So next one is, I understand the principle of nuclear safety culture, but how can I be sure that my employees stick to it? That's quite a broad question, that one. Mark, can you pick that one up again? You touched on it there. Can you answer that one?
Yeah, I can pick that up. Yeah, it's a really good question, because nuclear safety culture is very important, and for most, the leadership in your company has to stick to it and have an attitude to live by a nuclear safety culture. So if the management is not has not interest in showing that nuclear safety culture is important, then you can imagine that the rest of the company, the employees, don't see the necessity to stick to it. And you have certain possibilities to make nuclear safety culture clear to people. For instance, you need, of course, training. The people has to understand what nuclear safety culture means for for the company they work in. And you can do it by, as I said, training. The next is you can do, and you need some safety culture values you have to promote in your company. And you can do it by put on posters on the walls, and so the people, if they walk by, can see it. And the more they are to the nuclear safety culture values, I think the more they get to it. The next thing could be that you have, for instance, safety moments in the beginning of meetings or presentations, where you can discuss near misses or near incidents, and to show to the people that they are aware more to certain aspects of their work. I think that's all for it.
Okay, thank you. So again, comes down to leadership. Implementation is needs to be led from the top. Safety culture needs to be led from the top as well. So very understandable answer there, I think. Looking at a couple of the other ones coming through. Very simple one, I think. Dominique, can you take this one? It's when will TÜV be able to perform certification audits and I think it says edit certificates.
Certificates, yeah, of course. We are currently working on the accreditation scheme of TÜV Süd. This accreditation scheme will be managed by TÜV Süd France. And we already also made the choice of our accreditation body, which will be the French accreditation body COFRAC. COFRAC decided yesterday to validate its certification scheme. That means that they are now ready to proceed on this scheme, and we intended to be ready. I think Özlem told us by the end of the year. That means that we can hopefully deliver the first accredited certificates by beginning of 2022. But in the meanwhile, we will be able also to deliver non-accredited certificates. This can be a transition solution between the situation now and the getting of the accreditation. This is a possibility, and we are also in parallel building up our auditor team, our auditor pool, and we have now we have made the first trainings for auditors. We are working on the appointments of these auditors, and I think within 1 or 2 months we will be ready to perform the first audits. So we will be very soon able to provide an accredited or until the end of the year accredited certificates.
And I think that links to another question that we've got coming in, which is a question on, I think Dominic, maybe you can take this one. Do you have any idea when UCAS will accept the standard for accreditation?
I have no direct idea regarding UCAS. I know there are discussions ongoing with some certifying companies. The real new element today is that COFRAC, the French accreditation body, has validated its scheme. That means that on the French side, it will be possible from now. It's really new because the decision has been taken yesterday. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So quite a new thing, but it's quite soon that we're expecting that one.
Yeah. It just perhaps to complete, it depends, because when a company like TÜV Süd is approaching an accrediting body, the accreditation body has to check if it has all the specialists, if all the resources are there. Then they validate a certification scheme, and then things are possible. And I hope UCAS is on the same track, but I have no idea really of the time frame they need.
So it's a new item. It's a bit of a collaborative approach, and we need to agree those timelines, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Some more questions rolling in now. We've got one particularly on does the standard provide guidance on how to define undue radiation risk? Which one of you gents would like to take that one?
I can take this question. As you heard from Özlem's presentation, the graded approach is described, and it's necessary to do for items important to nuclear safety. And these items, these ITNS items, are defined by the licensee, and the licensee says which SSC systems, structures and components are ITNS items, and the licensee defines this. What you have to do as a supplier is to break down this item into activities and items, and then you have to make a graded approach to which of these items activities are needed for the specific safety functions. If I can give an example, if you have a pump turned by an electric motor, and this is a pump not constructed by nuclear requirements, and for instance, this safety function could be that it's leak tight because some radiation fluid is pumped by this pump. Then you have to break down this pump into several items like the casing, and activities like welding, for example, would be activity. And then you have to identify which of these items and activities is necessary to fulfill this safety function leak tightness. And this is the graded approach. And then you can define how which safety class could this safety function could be. And with that, you can make a risk-based analysis. If this leak tightness have failure, something like that, then you have to assess what can go wrong. And to come back to the question itself, you have a guidance technical report for the ISO 19443. It gives you some insight how a graded approach could be, but it doesn't show you. It gives us just recommendations how you can do a graded approach.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Thank you. We've got another question here, looking at asking about accreditation according to KTA 1401, and are there any synergies? This may be an internal question actually from one of our TÜV colleagues. Can any of you gents answer that one?
Dominic, or
as you want.
Okay, then I take it.
So I think the question is, are there any synergies between KTA 1401 and ISO 19443?
Yes, there are. Some requirements of the ISO 19443 are covered, which are similar to the requirements of KTA 1401. So if you would make a synopsis of both standards, you will see this. So it would help you if you want to implement ISO 19443 for your company, if you already have a certification for KTA 1401. Of course, the requirements are, how should I say, it is more likely that it covers the same field, but it's not that you can just put them next to it and have the same requirements written to 100%. Yeah. But it really helps you if you have already a broad understanding of KTA 1401.
Yeah, and the mix of both ISO 9001 plus KTA, of course, will help you to get to the requirements of 19443. Of course, if you have both, it's a good, really good beginning for the implementation.
So again, maybe that's a good example of where Özlem talked about the leveling of the playing field with their international standardization. It builds upon itself and provides that singular approach, that common approach. Okay, really good. Now we've got lots of questions coming in, but we're definitely not going to be able to get through all of them. About 12 minutes left just now, but we'll go to some there was one on nuclear safety culture. Mark, do you think you could take this one? It's how do you measure nuclear safety culture, as culture needs to show sustained practice and implementation over time? Difficult question.
Yes, it's true. I mean, you cannot measure safety culture, nuclear safety culture. If you amend it the last day, you won't see any effect the next day. What you have to do is to give you or think of a tool to evaluate some key performance indicators to measure how nuclear safety culture lives in your company. For instance, this could be how well trained is your personnel or your people working on in your company, or how clean is the workshop items are produced. If you have some indication that something is wrong, you can evaluate these and put them, for example, into a matrix and see at the end of the year, are there more green spaces or more red spaces that something is wrong. And if you do it, for instance, annual review of these performance indicators, and then you can apply measures to enhance nuclear safety culture. But really, it depends on you which nuclear safety culture performance indicators you will choose.
Okay.
If you need more help, we would really appreciate if you would ask us, and we can help you there. Yes.
Just to complete, and another point is to integrate this evaluation in the internal audits, and to systematically during the audits evaluate the culture by interviewing the people and asking questions around these topics. This can also be a good way to evaluate how is the culture in your company.
Okay, that's great. So in what we're really saying there is it's an evaluation approach and a bit of a prioritized and a staircasing approach, with key performance indicators measured over time. That's really good. Thank you. So I'm just conscious of the time now. I think we can probably squeeze one more question in. We've got some closing messages as well, a couple of partner organisations that we're affiliated to, so we'd look to get those in as well. But we can go for probably one more question. So we've talked about implementation. I think we've covered that one actually. Let's look at this one. So on occasions, our nuclear customers are not sufficiently clear on the importance of nuclear safety when we supply our products and services. And we therefore always provide a very comprehensive quality approach. Is there any practical advice on how this should be better optimized? I suppose that's a quality grading issue, really. Which one of you gents would like to take that one? Can you see that one? It's coming as 9 on the chat.
I cannot see it.
That's okay. I'll well, perhaps we.
I will try to answer it.
Okay.
To my understanding, the background of this question is that the supplier is delivering high quality products, but his customer is not quite confident or sure if this high quality. Maybe the question goes in this direction. I don't know. hard to tell because the customer is of course should be a supplier a tier level above you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your customer should know exactly which product and which safety functions you should fulfill with your product. So I don't know if there's a good an optimization if you have all well documented and there are no signs of bad products. I would say just try it again, and maybe the next time he is more confident in
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is maybe related to a sort of a long lead item and the identification of items important to nuclear safety, and the early specification and how that can lead to maybe an over application of a quality approach if something then is deemed not to be required for nuclear safety. But I suppose that's a maturity, again, a design maturity issue that needs to be monitored. But okay, well, I think we'll have to call it a day there, gents. So we'll end the Q&A there. Yeah. So to our attendees, thanks again for joining us. Hopefully we've provided you with a better understanding and appreciation of what ISO 19443 is and why it's necessary, what the main differences are between ISO 19443 and 9001, and also what the supplier's benefits are, which we did touch on considerably there, I believe, and also how to address the integration into systems. We talked about maturity, timeline, and basically your starting point, I suppose. As mentioned earlier, we'll be sending you a copy of this presentation and a link to this recording. The topic of ISO 19443 is an emerging issue and one which is being discussed widely across the nuclear industry. And the NIA, the Nuclear Industry Association, of which we're a member, TÜV are members, it's a great forum to gain access to emerging information, current challenges and opportunities across all aspects of nuclear-related issues. If you want to find out more about the NIA, how it works and how your organisation might benefit from it, our presentation slide deck will include this slide. I'll give you a couple of seconds to copy that down. Can we just go back one, please? Thank you. Just to take that, I think the email is info@niauk.org. And TÜV is also a member of NSAN, the National Skills Academy for Nuclear in the UK. We've developed a 2-day course on the key points and requirements for ISO 19443. And this course has very recently been endorsed by NSAN. So there's some contact details for NSAN there, and to find out more about this course, you can get in touch with us at nucleartraining@tuvsud.com via email, or you can find on our website, tuvsud.com/nuclear training, or indeed on the NSAN website. So on behalf of concluding the presentation now, and on behalf of Özlem, Mark, Dominique, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care out there. Okay, goodbye.